On the sort of quasi blueprint here of the items that would be in the facility. So there's room on there for 4 pickleball courts. It's an actual NBA-sized basketball court. There's a walking track that surrounds it. And on the right-hand side, you see bocce ball. That would have, well, it's bocce ball. There's also, he has listed horseshoes, but it's also one that's multifunctional in that the storage part that he has listed there would likely have an indoor batting cage for high school baseball. And you could also look at this part here that has AstroTurf and drop a net down, and all the golfers in town could go in there in the wintertime and
baseball players, yeah.
they could whack golf balls into a net because that's AstroTurf. So again, we're getting
Councillor, I'm sorry, I'm lost.
the right-hand side where it says bocce,
Yes,
it's got AstroTurf.
So it could be a multi-use.
Yes.
Multi-use.
Put a screen in there,
That's a good idea.
golf screen,
Maybe you're on batting.
put a golf screen in
You
there.
could put a golf screen in there, or you could put that up at the
Yeah,
clubhouse. Oh, yes. Councillor Brown just brought it to my attention. There's also an opportunity to put a climbing wall in here, because there's enough space.
We know people.
tall enough,
Yep.
that's great.
It's
24 feet.
24 feet 6 inches tall at the
This
peak.
doesn't include a raised walking trail.
And where would it be?
You could-
know?
You could put it, you know, where the track is, basically somewhere in, probably on, let's see, probably on the west end of that. If you wanted to make a smaller version of the climbing wall, it could go over where the AstroTurf part is as well. So, anyway, you kind of have an idea of what the layout is. Now, looking at this, Gibb has given us, and he's called and made 1,000 phone calls to try and come up with a price tag. You have to recognize that if we want to add to this, the price goes up. If we want to build something smaller, the price goes down. But this pretty much encompasses all of the things that we think are important for a multi-generational use. There's things in here that are attractive for seniors. There are things in here that are attractive for kids. There are things that are attractive in here for all ages. Take it away.
No, I would just add just exactly that. There are things they looked at Westwind School Division, you know, because we want their money, right? And so we wanted things in here that they would be able to use. Councillor Selk brought up that the high school right now is grade 9 through grade 12, but there's no gym time for the grade 9. Councillor, what did you say?
Basketball.
Basketball. They have no court for it. There's no room for them because they've got so many kids. Well, gosh darn it, look at that. We would have a court for them that now they can rent and they can make money at it, right? And so, Councillor Barnes, you'd brought up earlier the importance of a daycare. And I, too, when I looked at this and I saw the word daycare, I struggled with it because I didn't want people to assume, like, it's not, I'm going to work and I'm...
Babysitting service.
Right. That's not what I don't think that's what the intent is here.
Yeah.
I think the intent is like how the YWCA does it.
Yeah.
How I can go and work out there with my kids, and if I put so many hours in watching kids, then I can go work out for X amount of hours. So it's back and forth with babysitting. So you're right. Moms can have that time away. And so you're looking at this, and the key, I feel like, when you're looking at this isn't to get locked into, now where's the climbing wall and where's the golf? And the key is, this is the structure, and this is the blueprint of how Gibb and Councillor Selk and us foresaw spending of $1 million. This is kind of what we're thinking we could get, because like Councillor Selk said earlier today, we kind of we were left with the ashes of our rec center of the COVID, because of course before COVID hit we were supposed to have that big huge open house to the public and present it, which we still need to have, I understand. But because of COVID, we were looking at a $4.5 million building-ish, and that wasn't reasonable. And we get that. We absolutely do. And so they tried, and Gib Schaefer needs a big thanks because he's done a pile of work on this, as Councillor Selk has, to try and come up with something that is more feasible, right? That's the key. We've got a community of 4,000, just under 4,000 people, multi-generational. What is their ask? And we did talk to the seniors today because they've been wanting us to come. And when we say we talked to the seniors, we didn't talk to all of them. We talked to their board. And so we met with their board today, and we just questioned, what are your wants? What do you think would work? And we heard, this won't work, this would work. Those are all valid things that we wanted to bring to the table on this. Because you're right, Mayor, we can't progress without things in order. I understand governance and all of that. I absolutely agree. But I feel like we finally, and now that you're seeing what we're seeing, I think that this is pretty dang close and more reasonable to assume for our community. Councillor Selk?
No. Now, I will say this too, that Councillor Brown, being the compassionate soul that she is, I'm not so much. If you take what you see on the left-hand side of this, if you build the same structure on the right-hand side, you could say to West Winds, there's your locker rooms for football. There's enough space in there that you could build locker rooms for football. And then there's steps down to the football field.
For the right money.
For the
That's how compassionate I am.
Yeah, Councillor Brown made it clear that you're not getting it for free.
Can I just ask, sorry, can I just ask a question? So when Gib was here, he talked as a member of, as the chairman of the pickleball. Are they willing to go after grants and?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's the funding concept, is that the Pickleball Association is in the process of becoming a legitimate nonprofit association, but that takes some time. So they may have to operate under the umbrella of another association in town so that they can apply, for CFEP and SIP and everything else that they can apply for. Plus, the Pickleball Association is also willing to sort of spearhead the fundraising part of this, where one of the ideas is, hey, there's 4 pickleball courts for a price tag. You can name one of the courts after your ancestry, your family, do whatever you want, fill your boots, but you got to pay for it.
Much like they did with the library,
Right.
Yeah.
and it worked.
And if we have
And it's
if we have a
off the field, yeah.
really big benevolent benefactor who wants to
Seniors
throw
where you
some
buy a
money
chair.
at this,
Oh, they're up there.
we'll name the whole darn building after them.
Yeah.
The Gerry Selk, no, sorry.
Gerry Selk Memorial Building.
Gary doesn't have that kind of money.
Mayor.
Okay, first of all, thank you for providing those to us. It's easier to talk when you have stuff under your nose. And I appreciate it was a last-minute thing for you. What I'm trying to understand regarding your funding, so the school has been approached, and I hope they're interested. But let's put it at the worst. If there were a naysayer to that concept, considering the financial turmoil everybody's in, could be no, could be yes. Mm-hmm. At the best is yes. At the worst is no. So what happened then? Do we know what would be plan B with the financing?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I address that, Mayor?
Sure.
With respect to financing the building, if we look at the price tag that we're looking at here, that's pretty close to what we said we wanted to spend, right? And if the county's
For the 2 buildings, remember?
1.5.
Well, 1.5.
5.5, this is
For
a
the
million.
2 building, 1.5,
Correct.
Yeah, but
right?
this is $1 million.
Right.
That would leave
Okay.
0.5 for.
So we're saying $1 million for one, $500,000 for the other.
Yep.
Right? So at the end of the day, yes, we still think we can construct this based upon these numbers. And the town, that's just if the town is the one who constructs it. Now, having said that, there's additional considerations where we negotiate something with West Winds where they provide custodial care of it, in order for their usage. And there's other things that can be negotiated. All of that stuff is to be determined. But right now, you've kind of got something that has, at least you can look at it and say, okay, I get it. I see where you're coming from. The biggest thing that Gibb tried to do is he tried to stay at $1 million.
Okay, so can I ask one more thing?
You bet.
Is that then possible and for the town to kind of look at this blueprint and to corroborate the cost? Jeff, I'm talking to you.
Yes. I mean, at some point, it's got to go to tender, right? Like, it'll hit that point.
Go ahead.
That sort of leads to the next question that we should discuss, and that's, do we want to go, okay, thank you for your work, we'll take it from here? Or do we want to enter into a public-private partnership with the Pickleball Association? Working on the fundraising and working on the construction of this with partners with the town.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, so,
Before you say anything, Mayor, though, just let me clarify something.
no, that's okay.
Because in Gibbs, and I know that, whatever your feelings are about that, in Gibbs' mind, that's where we save a lot of money, is by not having a general contractor that will charge us an additional $150,000 to $200,000 just for the general contracting fees. So there is that consideration.
Go ahead, Mayor. Sorry. And then,
Well, is Gibb volunteering to general contract this?
It is.
Okay, so
Deal?
help me understand a little bit. Is it a P2 you're looking at?
3.
P3. So it would be the Pickleball Association, the town, and,
County?
Well, they're a municipal entity and West Winds. Public,
Okay.
private partnership.
all right, so here is my question then.
Could be a P2.
Yeah, did the West Wind give you a time frame as to when they will give you an answer?
They did not, to my understanding. Councillor, do you
Okay,
want?
So I don't know that they were given this in that meeting on Thursday. I feel like this came after
It
the
did.
meeting.
You're right.
So I feel like this was the next step, which it was for us as well, right? So I feel the county is requesting this next step, as is the West Wind School Division, is my understanding. And so that will get to them, not us, but that our people will get to them. And then I think they were talking about it because they're looking at budgeting as well, is how I understood it.
Councillor Court.
So are you okay with, I'm subbing tomorrow, I got a first period start. Are you okay with me giving this to the principal of the high school? Because he'll drive a lot of this discussion with the school division.
I don't have an issue
No
with
problem.
We're not in closed session, so.
it. We're being fairly open with the
Yeah.
direction we're going with
I will
this.
get him a copy of this then, and he can go from there.
Go ahead, Mayor.
so if I understand properly, are you trying to have us make a recommendation today regarding a possible P3 without maybe a possible P3 that is, well, it would have to hinge on the school approving that, but there are many things that have not been done. The need assessment has never been done. There's a lot of things that seems to me we're pushing forward towards towards putting more money forward without having those other pieces that should be in place in order to make sure that what we're doing is what the community really wants. And I know that 4 of the councillors at this table were elected with a platform that included a rec center. I am very well aware of it, and I can sense you are very itching to make sure that before that term is over, there's something in place. I totally get it, I understand it, and it's your prerogative. It's nothing wrong with it. We all have ideas that we want to bring forward. But I want to make sure that the steps that are important are not missed. Like finding at least a sense of support of the community. We know that those who are going to be the users will be behind you 100%. The same was the story with the fields and when you had that idea. It's the same thing. You had huge support, and it was the motor that got you really to the finish line. And I really think we need that same support of a core of the population of the voters. They're going to say, yes, I'm willing. And I understand it might cost me more on my taxes. I understand that too, and I'm willing. So I think if we had at least some mechanism to kind of get that sense of need assessment, I think we would feel more comfortable moving forward and say, yeah, absolutely, let's spend the money.
Go ahead, Councillor.
So, I sit on the Park and Rec board.
Right.
And just to remind you, we paid, I want to say, $12,500 to Factor 5 to do that very, it's
Right.
my understanding, that very thing. When you say needs assessment, I just need to be clear on what, I'm not actually sure what that is. It's my understanding that we paid, us in the county, went into partnership, and we paid the money for Factor 5 to come in and talk to the people in the town of Cardston, to survey them, and to find out what the needs, what they wanted. And when he presented to us, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, those of you that were at that meeting, that it was, yes, they wanted a rec facility. Now, did they want the 5 million or the what, you know what I mean? That wasn't discussed. Actually, it was, because one of the questions was, do you want your taxes to be affected by it, right? Well, nobody wants their taxes to go up. So, of course, they're saying they would like something for nothing. I want on that ship. But I feel like that needs assessment, isn't that what we paid the $12,500 for? So maybe I don't understand what, when you're saying needs assessment, I'm unclear as to what more we need to do, other than the budget and all of these things.
So maybe we need to go back to that survey that was done.
Okay.
And try to get the result of that survey, try to make sure that we understand it,
That's a great idea.
and try to understand how many people were polled. Because if the polling represents 5% of the population is one thing. It represents 30% of the population, it's a heck of a different story. So I like to review that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Jeff's got all that information.
I'm just trying to find it in short order, but I'm not.
Councillor Bengry?
This is all hodgepodge to me, but I noticed there's no percentages, plus or minus 15% or anything like that. Are these maximum amounts? Because your costs are going to fluctuate, throughout the year and stuff like that. So we could end up spending 900,000, or we could spend up, be set up for 1.5. Now, does that come out in the tendering process? How does that work?
Want me to answer?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That's the point.
Okay. I don't know what you're asking, Councillor, in terms of, can we nail this to the wall and say, that's it, it's never going to cost us another penny more than that? No, it's not going to happen, okay? There's going to be fluctuations. Now, having said that, he's done his best to talk to suppliers, to talk to the company who is going to provide the building, who has given us a guarantee on the costs for a year. Okay?
Let's,
Factor in, he's volunteering about $200,000 worth of labor by being the general
let's,
contractor.
let's settle down, because I'm not here to fight.
Apparently
I'm
you are.
here to get information before I make that decision.
Well, didn't
Now,
we talk
you
about
know
this
where
in-
I sit, you know where I sit with a decision on a rec center. You know that. But I want to make sure that I'm making that decision with an informed information.
Councillor
So
Barnes.
I've had people call me, I've had people in my office, just like many of you have, regarding this rec center. The big ticket one, $5 million, was, whoa, they were not happy. And they said, if you could pare that down quite significantly, we're in favor of it. From everything I've heard, people want something, but they don't want to spend the $4 or $5 million.
They don't want
And
taxes.
so, my understanding of of our planning session, we were happy with the 1.5 million for the two things. So move forward from there. Let's not haggle right now. Let's just see where it's going to go.
So can we, Jeff, do you have the survey that we did for this, or is that something that,
I'll just email it out to everybody.
okay.
Okay, good.
And I think that I'm comfortable with the $1.5 million cap. And I just want to make sure that we can do both for that amount. And I guess the other piece is that when people start to do fundraising, when we start to do grant application, that kind of stuff, whether it's the golf course or the rec center, that $1.5 million might go a lot further because people are applying for some grants, right?
So, Councillor Selk, another question for you. Imagine that the school board says no. Are we then looking at a P2?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, fair enough. It's a fair answer. In other words, with it or without it,
Private, public.
your desire is to push forward.
Right.
Okay. So, no, it's fair. I just need to understand where are we going, or are we going to make a double effort to try to find people, philanthropists that will be happy to help us.
Sure.
It's almost a P4 right now, isn't it?
Let me, okay. We have tried, and I've said this before, to stay with a $1 million budget. Now, if we're able to fundraise, then we pay the town back. If we're able to get corporate sponsorship, we pay the town back. So all of that is contingent upon what sort of fundraising efforts, so that the cost of the town decreases. But up front, we may have to say, it's $1 million, it's coming from these sources. Our anticipation is that we're going to build it without raising taxes. As for the ongoing costs, we're going to look at partnerships where we can minimize the ongoing costs. And I'm sorry, Councillor Bengry, if I had a knife, I would probably write it in blood on here, but I'm not going to do that, because I can't guarantee that this is the final bottom line, never going to cost us a cent more.
Well, I can understand that, but these are some of the information that I would like to have personally, so that I can make an informed decision. Because I think we're going to be questioned this by our public, our citizens.
I bet.
And so we need to have that type of information. Say, hey, our swimming pool, we had it at this, we come in underneath the budget, fantastic, you know.
We did.
Anytime you can come in under budget, it's fantastic.
Councillor Brown.
Okay, so I think it's been a great discussion. I hope that's helped. I hope having this information, now you can all be as excited, as informed as we are, and appreciate our passion on this. So I guess with administration, my question you've answered 45 minutes ago, I feel like, was what's the next step? The step is the budget. your meeting, great. I feel like we've now done this with council. I guess my next question is, because I haven't gone through this protocol, so I apologize, I don't know. But, so do we now need to, and due to COVID, I'm unclear on how this works. Do we need to have an open house for this? And if we have an open house to have people, could we not do it online? So we, because virtual, do a virtual open house of some sort so that people can come in? Because due to COVID, of course, remember, back in March again, we were going to have that open house.
Yeah.
And we haven't been able to do that. And so I feel like, just like we talked about the policing and having the mayor on and to talk about it, would it not be reasonable to have something, this is what we're looking at doing, informing the public? Because it is never our intent to just jump and do something that the public doesn't want. That's my question.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mayor.
The public will always have two questions. Does it satisfy my need? And how much is that going to cost me on my taxes? It's always a two question.
Yep.
So, regarding the needs, I would say kudos for the multi-use that you present in this and the multi-generational use that you intend to do. That's great. But the true question that I really want is always how much is going to come out of my pocket again. And so unless we're able to have enough firm budgeting numbers, maybe based on what has been presented already,
Correct.
and to understand then what's the maintenance, the operation cost, because we know that the capital probably be able to
Cover it.
to cover it, get around it, but the maintenance of this, maybe that's where administration needs to give us more information. And like I say, I still like to have a good sense of the need assessment. I really need that to understand that, because this will propel it forward much quicker than anything else will. Because if the people really say, yeah, you know what, I support such an idea, it's within a range that I think we can afford, well, it's much easier than to move forward and say, from a blueprint, let's move to a contract.
Sure, go ahead.
I understand, but that doesn't answer my question. Do we need to have an open house? Is the protocol that in order to, when you spend this much
Yeah,
money,
you
do
have-
we need to have an open house?
It's always best.
Yeah, go
So
ahead, Jeff.
that depends.
Okay.
So the requirement varies. If you're going to borrow for it, then the answer is absolutely yes. You must have a public hearing on the borrowing bylaw. If we can fit it within the budget without borrowing, that requirement is gone. But do I think it's a good idea to
Yeah.
have some public consultation on something like this? Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you should try and work around that, because
Correct.
that'll come back to bite you. But, you know, we can, under the current guidelines, I think we can have 50 in a building, you know, something like that.
We can do it downstairs.
Well,
No.
we're full of gymnastics
Oh,
for
is it?
most of the
Okay.
year.
What about the school
Although there
gym?
is a time in December where we're not, because they take down for about a month.
Yes.
But
what,
even here, we can
Right.
facilitate, you know, 10, 12 people at a time to come through and ask their questions and that, but whatever communication you wanna do is fine. But your question, I guess, is it required?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
unless you're borrowing.
Okay,
Okay.
so if I can just finish on that. So I feel that we need to put it on the calendar, so we have a date in which to say, on December, whatever it is, when the gym is open, that we would like to have an open house, and I would like to have Channel 32 cover it. I want it so that people can pick it up, so they can live stream it from their home, just the way we do firesides in the stake, and we can see how many households are watching it, because I think that's important, because that'll give us our numbers, Mayor. And I feel like putting it out that way, people are able to see it. It's unfortunate that it's in December, but I feel like, you know, it's COVID, and where do we go with this? So I would like to get that booked so that we have a date. My thoughts.
Councillor Selk?
Okay. But in order to move on to another topic on the agenda, I would suggest we put this on the agenda for every council meeting from now until hell freezes over.
Wow.
Not a bad thing.
So, Jeff, can we get, you're gonna email out, the survey that was done, just to give us some numbers and that kind of stuff, and then next Tuesday, we would talk about this again in our council meeting, right?
Okay,
Is that
yeah,
okay?
I think that's good. My only concern, if the numbers are not representative of a good survey, what's a follow-up
We do.
to do something that's more robust?
So,
The open house.
Yeah, go ahead.
so we did send out a survey. Jeff, how many years ago?
Oh boy, I'm not sure.
4 years ago, I want to say. It was before I was on council, but not much before. Anywho, there was a Parks and Rec survey that went out asking that very question. So we have the information from that one that was done. Jeff will.
It was not significantly,
Perfect.
statistically
So then
relevant.
the second thing is we have the one that we paid $12,000 for. And if those numbers aren't good enough, we can, and by we, mostly Shem, can go ahead and create another fabulous survey and blitz it out, because the good news is with email, we have everyone who pays land taxes, we have their emails, I would think, or not.
No.
Not totally.
Or somehow we can get it out to the people within the town of Cardston. There's a way of doing
Well, we
it.
can get it on the webpage, we can get it
I'm
on the
just saying,
Facebook page.
but here's the thing. It's just like everyone in town needs to vote, right? Everyone needs to vote, but they choose not to. So I can walk it right to your front door and you can choose to not do it. So all we can do
Totally
is put it
right.
out there, blitz it to say 3,000 people. And if we get, I don't know, 50 back, you know what I mean? Like what do you do? At what point? I feel like we've done that due diligence, and I feel like having an open house and having the people that are coming to our offices and our homes, I feel like we've gotten the demographic. We're meeting with the seniors. We've gone to Westwinds. I feel like that due diligence by the end of this we will have handled, but I'm happy to throw in another survey because we got people.
Okay, well, let's talk about it at a further time.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to correspondence quickly.
Nope,
Nope.
I'm not ready to move on yet.
Oh, okay.
When are we gonna talk about it next?
Next,
Well, it
next
says
next
week,
meeting.
Tuesday.
Council
Next meeting?
Yep.
And are we gonna have Beezer here and those other people?
Well, Delbert's already scheduled to come and present.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know those other people that you might be looking for, Councillor.
Well, I'm looking for Delbert Beezer and,
He said he was on
and I'd also suggest that we have Gib here just to listen in if we have questions. I don't know how we can do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks. So correspondence, there's just a whole bunch of, I don't know if you want to talk about these individually, Jeff, or just,
The
They're all
first one is
pretty
the
quick.
heritage one.
Yeah, the monument, the
yeah,
That'd be
38.
great.
Black Memorial Monument, there was a good grant there.
Was it 38,000? Yeah.
38,500, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just
So we're
ask
getting a little
question?
further along
Oh,
there.
yeah, just sorry.
How close are we, Jeff?
Thank you.
20,000 now.
Yeah, we're still about 20,000 shy.
Good.
They're looking at about 75, 80,000,
It was
right?
about 80, I think, at the final
Okay.
go, or just over 60.
Okay.
Is that what we need for the preparation of the site?
I would have to look at the breakdown a little closer. We don't have money for that. We don't quite have enough just for the monument itself yet.
Okay.
But it's very close, and it's all been grants that we've written from the town. Right now, there's no other source of funding on this.
Wow.
Nothing, eh?
Is there,
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
is there a possibility to put it on a website, of the town website, as to how much money has been raised through funds that the town has applied for?
Put whatever you'd like on
And,
the website.
well, I think we should.
a great
Let
idea.
the people know and tell them we're still short that much money, and donations are welcome.
And this is what it's for.
There hasn't been to this, we've had it on the
I know.
website quite a bit, we've had it on a GoFundMe, we've had it, there doesn't seem to be a public appetite to donate towards this.
No, there is no appetite because I don't know that we already have that much money and how close we are from the goal.
Sure.
Kara's still pushing this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're waiting to know also if the school is going to give us some money. That was always the
It's a common theme in this meeting.
the
How much do
school-
we have total so far?
It's over
67.
60,000.
Just and what was it? See, I thought when we first started talking about that was the figure we were given was the 60,000
Oh,
bucks.
it's 90 some thousand.
It's a bronze monument on the top of the monument. That's very costly.
Awesome.
Okay.
Can I just say it's ironic that the third paragraph, that the government of Canada is committed to promoting workplaces free from harassment. So I'm just curious if they've given this to the Governor General or not, and if she knows that.
Her office needs money.
Moving right along.
So
Okay.
Jeff, the most grant notice?
So B and D are related, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. So the province came out with the municipal operating stimulus transfer, most.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an interesting grant. The town's allocation, hold on, I had it pulled up here. $400,821, but let me put a massive caveat on that. It's for personal protective equipment, supplemental cleaning, supports for vulnerable populations, and the replacement of reduced revenues. We're gonna meet, we've been talking, and JD's starting to do some work on, frankly, how do we spend that amount in a grant, which is a weird discussion I've never had before about how to spend all of a grant. But the fact is, as far as revenue impact due to COVID, we haven't been affected to the tune of $400,000.
No,
And
not at all.
cleaning and PPE might be a few $1,000s. So the grant is for expenses that will be incurred up to March 31st of next year. We are going to be looking at, basically how we're looking at this is if we could take a step back in time to 6 or 7 months ago and say, hey, there's a pandemic coming.
Yeah.
What would we like to have that would be fully equipped and prepared to handle this in every department as well as possible? That might be what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so that if there's a second wave, if there's a mutation of this thing that we're dealing with again, then we are that much better equipped going forward. And it may include things like, JD has been working with the 5 communities on revamping our emergency management plans and emergency services policy and procedures. Well, that all might qualify under pandemic planning and pandemic expenses, where maybe those studies get covered by this, because all of us are sitting with that relative allocation of most funding. And we've been talking, I've talked to McGrath, I've talked to the county about how are we pursuing this expense? How do we justify the
It's
expense?
insane.
So we're having an interesting look at this one, for sure.
Councillor Bengry and then Councillor Brown.
He
Sorry.
answered my question.
Oh, okay.
Jeff, have we used
No,
the
no kidding.
facilities, the Flamingo Motel? Has anybody been
Not
us?
our expense. We
That
didn't
has
incur any
been
expenses
the
for
blood
that.
tribe
The blood
expense.
tribe, right?
Could we put some money in towards that?
I'm not clear why we would. We didn't expend any money for it.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering if we have a second wave and we need it.
Oh, I see. Well, that's a venture solely managed by Blood Tribe Health. That's their baby. I mean, we can use it.
Councillor Barnes.
Yeah.
My question is, they put such a strict timeline by March. How do we know if we're gonna have all this stuff formulated by the end of this March coming up? That doesn't give you a lot of time to figure out where you're gonna spend or what costs
That's why they did it.
$400,000.
Councillor Selk?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you
Well,
off.
that, I'm quite confident, by the end of this month, we have a bit of an inventory of here's what that could look like. And we'll go from there. We have to do a reporting by July 2nd. It's just for expenses through. It's an interesting deadline too, because there's an assumption that the pandemic is over.
It's over.
Well,
Yeah, that's
Right,
true.
which nobody knows.
that's
Well, that's
really an
right.
interesting
So-
Well,
concept.
till the US election is over anyway.
Selk?
So Jeff, clearly with this pandemic, there's a mental health toll. Is there any way you can segue any of this into something in that regard?
I mean, one of the named categories is supports for vulnerable populations.
There you go.
So youth and seniors for two of those.
me.
But
Senior needs,
Pretty much everybody.
yeah, and right now you could probably put everybody in there. I'm not really sure what that looks like, but we're open to any thoughts on it. We're just beginning a brainstorm and starting to keep an inventory of what it could go towards that would help
more
us,
specific.
especially if there's a second wave or a
be
mutation,
more
right?
specific.
And we're dealing with this again.
Mayor, go ahead.
Well, to go along with that idea of mental health, if mental health is something that we need to look at and not ignore, the youth, the elderly, and everything in between need some relief. And the relief, health-wise, is through anything that is activities that is sports-related, outside, walking, exercising, whatever. So, can this project
Yeah, I was just thinking the same
qualify
thing.
for mental
I
health
was thinking the same thing.
or part of it?
You're looking pretty good.
No, I'm
So,
joking, but not joking.
operational. Yeah, it's strictly operational.
Isn't
so
it too
cannot
bad?
go towards any capital. It's
Okay,
it's
so it's-
municipal
Parade.
operating stimulus transfer.
Very,
So we'll wait until you have a brainstorming meeting to
So-
kind of
Yeah,
find
we're
out
starting
what's.
to put things together,
Okay.
what that could be.
I'd like to see what Banff and Jasper are gonna spend $10 million on, but just me.
Trust
Yeah.
me, they'll figure it
They'll
out.
figure it out, yeah. Okay.
Well,
Yes.
they're talking about lost tourism
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Banff and
yeah,
Jasper.
exactly.
So why don't we say we lost $400,000 worth of tourism in Cardston because of COVID, so we spend it however we want.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's reconciled, really. I still don't quite understand that.
I mean, when you put up nebulous terms like that, well, then
Yeah.
everybody falls in that category.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Councillor Brown.
Fabulous.
it's unfortunate that we have money we cannot spend.
Well, I didn't say we cannot. That wasn't the
Yeah,
answer
hold
here.
up
It's just
here.
we have to think this through.
Councillor Brown.
Okay, so on what Councillor Selk just said, so we do have a lot of businesses in this town that have suffered hugely. The theater, lots of businesses up and down Main Street.
You bet.
So you're saying,
It's a town.
This is not for us to distribute to a
I
third
know,
party.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
but could it not go towards their taxes?
Could they make,
Why couldn't it?
could they make application like the Carriage House Theater for
They probably
compensation?
have.
So what I can tell you is if it's for personal protective equipment, supplemental cleaning, supports for the vulnerable population, or replacement of reduced revenues, then it qualifies.
So it's
So
very.
But I think
Replace-
it's incredibly dangerous to start replacing
No.
people's taxes with grant money, because
Yes.
where do you
No.
stop? And the other thing is, how do you substantiate loss? Because I can tell you that some of those businesses you think were hurt were not.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, I know.
A lot of
That's
people
the
have
case.
That's
done
true.
very
I know.
well.
So, in the essence of time here, can we let them take this away?
We have till
And,
March on this, baby.
yeah,
Okay.
you guys are gonna brainstorm, you can bring that back to us as to
Yeah.
what you're planning on doing.
So strictly operational.
So just, one last correspondence from the Minister of Culture,
Yeah, just award nomination.
just award nominations. Any
If you
questions?
have any names, send them to Jeff.
Okay.
Move to go into closed session.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Channel 32.